So in today's video we're going to talk very much about the hands, and in particular what your hands should be trying to do in the downswing position. Lots of golfers that I meet get confused, and that's why they end up reaching out for golf lessons very much in the first place. Let's take it back to basics. One of the things that we have to do to become a successful golfer is control what is known as our low point, which essentially means get the club to strike in the same part each and every time. So when you set up to the golf ball, the club will rest behind the ball, and then you'll swing the club head up, the club will come down, and then it will go back up again. And what we need to ensure is that club is striking down anything from an inch to 5-6 inches to the left of the ball for a right-handed golfer. So if my golf ball was located here, I want to ensure my club is striking past that point, coming in towards that downswing position. Now, the way in which you're going to do that is by controlling what your hands are doing. And in golfing terminology, this is known as your hand path. So if I get set up to this golf ball here, I swing up to the top of the backswing position, and I start my downswing with a casting motion. This would then mean that the club is going to hit the ground before it meets the ball. And that will either mean literally, so you'll hit the ground and the ball, you might not even meet the ball, or this is why we end up thinning the golf ball, which means that we hit more of the equator of the ball rather than the bottom of it. So to ensure that doesn't happen, we have to make sure that as we come in towards the downswing, our hands are progressively moving ahead of the ball. And a good feeling that we want to have is that our hands are ahead of the ball before the club head meets it, like so. Now, the way in which you're going to do this is by concentrating very much on the start of the downswing. So as I initiate my downswing, you can see here the way that my upper arm is moving very much to the side of my body, or you could think about your elbow moving alongside or even in front of your trail hip. And what this is doing is this is enabling my hands to move progressively towards the ball. Simultaneously, as you are doing this motion, what will happen is that your lower arm will progressively straighten away from your upper arm. So this motion here is going to happen very, very naturally. And the issue that I'm encountering with a lot of golfers is that they've watched instructional videos where somebody will say you want to throw the club or you want the feeling of throwing the club. And I'm not saying that's incorrect. I'm not necessarily saying as a feeling that couldn't work for some. But if you are somebody who has the club head meeting the back of the golf ball prior to your hands, right, which kind of gets termed as scoopy, then you're not probably going to be suited to the feeling of throwing the club. What you want to do is you want to be focusing very much more on driving your elbow. So move your elbow. Look, as I start this downswing, see the way that my elbow moves in front of my hands, right? Not hands in front of elbow. Because from here, look, if I move like this, my hands end up getting really high, getting too scoopy, like so. We want to make sure that elbow leads as you start the downswing position, and then that will be enough to get your hands into a position where, see, my arms are straighter, and then my hands can be ahead of the club head coming in towards that contact point. Now, there's a couple of other points that I just want to reference here. One is you need to progressively move towards your lead side, okay? Because if you try and work well with your arm movement, but let's say you have a really bad habit to, stand up or something like that, then this would make it much harder, if not impossible, for you to move your hands correctly. So we do need to move a little bit towards your lead side. So it's worth, when you're sort of practicing these positions, and a really good position is when the club shaft is parallel towards the floor, you want to make sure your hands are opposite your trail thigh. Just make sure that your weight is moved in towards your lead side as well, because what that's doing is that's just ensuring that you're creating the space for your hands to come into. And if you imagine throwing a ball, you would naturally move towards your lead side as you brought your arm in. If you imagine trying to bring your arm to the side of your body to skim a stone, but moving the opposite direction, that would make it theoretically very, very awkward and maybe almost, impossible. So you would always move that way. And that's what we class as our sort of angular momentum. And that's what you want to work on. Now, there is always one sort of relatively maybe contentious discussion point, which is the club face. So when our hands are ahead of the club head, that is going to have an opening effect on the club face. Okay, so as you're coming in towards this downswing position, your club face will feel more open. And that happens. So when we see a professional golfer, we'll always use the position of when the club shaft is parallel towards the floor. And we always notice the way that the back of the lead hand is facing towards the camera at this point in time. As the club, as your hands progressively move towards the target, the club will naturally start to uncock, which is this motion I'm demonstrating here, and then we'll end up looking something kind of like so. So I'm not saying the club face would be completely wide open this time. There's going to be an element of progressive rotation of the lead hand. So this is kind of known as a supinatory motion, which is essentially my left hand rotating towards the target. And that's happening very progressively from when the club shaft is parallel towards the ground. So my hands continue to move towards the target. My wrists will naturally be uncocking, so the club will be releasing like so, and I will be progressively rotating my hands coming in towards the bottom part of the swing. So what I'm trying to say is it will feel like the face is very open. It will be a very unusual feeling, and this is something that I work with a lot of my online students. This is where I feel like I come in a lot with students, is just offering them encouragement to be a little bit more experimental. I'm not suggesting it's an easy thing to do, but it is the thing that will take your game to a different level, because this is also known as whipping the club. So if you're somebody who does this, all that energy is going to be happening over here. If you can move more this way, then the energy is going to be happening where you want it to be, more towards the bottom part of the swing. I'll see you soon.